When we think about the fountain of youth, most people imagine some magic pill, a hidden superfood, or a rare therapy. But the truth is far simpler, far more powerful, and it's been with us all along. The real fountain of youth is muscle. Not just for strength, not just for appearance, but because muscle is the body's most important tool for managing glucose. Every bite of food, every rise in blood sugar, muscle is the first line of defense. If you want to age well, if you want to stay sharp, energetic, and vibrant, it's not about avoiding years, it's about building muscle. Muscle is the key to balance, to resilience, to longevity. Muscle is the primary sink for glucose. Without it, blood sugar stays dangerously high. This simple truth explains more about health, aging, and vitality than most people realize. Every time we eat, the body must decide what to do with the glucose that enters the bloodstream. Too much glucose left circulating for too long is toxic, damaging blood vessels, nerves, and organs. That's why the body has evolved such a powerful system to handle it. And at the center of this system is muscle. Muscle tissue is uniquely equipped to absorb glucose quickly, using it as fuel for energy or storing it as glycogen for later use. No other tissue in the body comes close to matching this role. In fact, more than 70% of the glucose that clears from the bloodstream after a meal is taken up by skeletal muscle. This makes muscle the most important regulator of blood sugar balance. Without healthy, active muscle, glucose lingers in the blood, driving insulin resistance, with metabolic dysfunction and eventually diabetes. The challenge is that modern lifestyles have led to a silent decline in muscle mass. Many people spend long hours sitting, rarely engaging their muscles in meaningful ways. Over time, this inactivity shrinks the muscle's capacity to take up glucose. Add to this the natural muscle loss that comes with aging, known as sarcopenia, and the problem compounds. With less muscle, the body has fewer places to store glucose, which means more of it stays in the blood, pushing insulin levels higher and higher. Chronic high insulin not only worsens glucose control but also accelerates fat storage, inflammation, and aging itself. This is why muscle is not just about strength or appearance. It's the frontline defense against the most common metabolic problems of our time. The good news is that muscle is highly adaptable. It responds almost immediately to training and use. Just a single session of resistance exercise can enhance muscle's ability to take up glucose, independent of insulin. That means even if insulin is not working well in the body, the act of contracting muscle opens up glucose pathways, pulling sugar from the blood directly into the muscle cells. Over time, as muscles grow stronger and larger, this effect only multiplies. Muscle literally becomes a sponge for glucose, preventing harmful spikes and keeping energy steady throughout the day. This is why people who build and maintain muscle age differently. They don't just live longer. They live stronger with more vitality, mobility, and resilience against disease. It's also worth remembering that the benefits of muscle extend far beyond glucose control. Muscle is an endocrine organ, releasing powerful signaling molecules called myokines that influence everything from brain function to immune health. When muscle is active, these signals promote fat burning, reduce inflammation, and even improve mood and cognition. But it all starts with glucose, because glucose balance is the foundation of metabolic health. If blood sugar is out of control, every other system in the body eventually suffers. By protecting glucose balance, muscle protects the entire body. So when we look at the question of aging gracefully or preventing chronic disease, the answer isn't hidden in supplements, exotic diets, or expensive treatments. It is found in something very simple and accessible: using and building muscle. Every rep, every set, every step that challenges the muscles is an investment in health. Without muscle, glucose remains a constant threat, pushing us toward decline. With muscle, glucose finds its proper place, fueling strength and life itself. Muscle is the primary sink for glucose, and that makes it the true fountain of youth. More muscle means greater insulin sensitivity, protecting against diabetes and aging. This statement captures a truth that has been proven again and again in science, but is often overlooked in daily life. Insulin is the hormone that allows glucose to move from the bloodstream into the cells where it can be used for energy. When cells become resistant to insulin, glucose is left circulating in the blood, forcing the body to produce even more insulin in an effort to bring it under control. Over time, this cycle of high glucose and high insulin damages tissues, accelerates aging, and sets the stage for type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and other chronic illnesses. But muscle is the body's secret weapon against this problem. The more muscle you have, the more insulin sensitive your body becomes, meaning it needs less insulin to keep glucose in check. Skeletal muscle is the largest site of insulin stimulated glucose uptake in the body. Think of it as a giant reservoir that is always ready to absorb excess sugar from the blood when needed. When muscle mass is low, that reservoir is smaller, and the body has to work harder to maintain glucose balance. Insulin levels climb, and over time, tissues stop responding. But when muscle mass is higher, the reservoir expands, and the same amount of glucose can be managed with much less insulin. This efficiency reduces the strain on the pancreas, lowers the risk of insulin resistance, and helps keep the entire metabolic system running smoothly. What makes muscle even more remarkable is that it improves insulin sensitivity in two ways: by growing larger and by staying active. Larger muscles provide more storage space for glycogen, but active muscles have a unique ability to draw in glucose even without insulin. When muscles contract during exercise, they open glucose transport channels independent of insulin signal, pulling sugar directly into the muscle cell. This means that regular movement and strength training don't just build muscle. They also train the muscle to work better, to be more metabolically flexible, and to protect against glucose spikes. It's one of the reasons exercise is often called medicine, but the truth is, it's better than medicine because it addresses the root cause of metabolic dysfunction instead of just masking its effects. The connection between muscle and aging is especially important. As we grow older, the body naturally loses muscle unless it is deliberately challenged. This gradual decline in muscle mass is one of the primary reasons insulin resistance becomes more common with age. Older adults who do not preserve or rebuild muscle become increasingly vulnerable to glucose problems, leading to diabetes, weight gain, cognitive decline, and frailty. But this process is not inevitable. Studies consistently show that resistance training at any age, even well into the 80s or 90s, can rebuild muscle and restore insulin sensitivity. The body never loses its ability to adapt, it only needs the right stimulus. Muscle also protects against aging in ways that go beyond glucose. By keeping insulin sensitivity high, muscle helps maintain hormone balance, reduces systemic inflammation, and preserves energy production in the mitochondria. All of these factors slow the biological clock and extend health span, the years of life lived with vitality and strength. People with higher muscle mass and better insulin sensitivity are less likely to suffer from the chronic conditions that make aging difficult, and more likely to stay independent, active, and sharp as the years go by. The takeaway is clear: muscle is not just about aesthetics or physical strength. It is the cornerstone of metabolic health and the shield against the twin threats of diabetes and premature aging. Every workout that builds or preserves muscle is an act of prevention, a way to keep insulin sensitivity high and protect the body from decline. More muscle does not just mean a stronger body, it means a more efficient metabolism, a sharper mind, and a longer, healthier life. More muscle means greater insulin sensitivity, and that is one of the most powerful forms of protection any of us can build. Muscle acts like a metabolic shield, soaking up excess glucose after every meal. This simple but powerful idea shows why muscle is so critical to long-term health and why it deserves to be viewed as more than just tissue for movement or strength. Every time we eat, especially when the meal includes carbohydrates, glucose levels in the blood rise. The body then has to work quickly to bring those levels back down to a safe range because prolonged high blood sugar is toxic. That's where muscle steps in. Muscle is uniquely suited to absorb glucose efficiently, either using it immediately for energy during activity or storing it as glycogen for later use. By doing so, it acts as a shield protecting the body from danger spikes in blood sugar that can damage blood vessels, accelerate aging, and lead to disease. When muscle mass is healthy and active, the body can handle large amounts of glucose with ease. After a carbohydrate-rich meal, instead of glucose lingering in the bloodstream, muscle pulls it in rapidly and stores it safely. This prevents the pancreas from having to release excessive amounts of insulin. The shield of muscle, in this way, protects not just against glucose overload, but also against chronic high insulin levels, which are linked to weight gain, inflammation, and insulin resistance. Without sufficient muscle, the shield is weak and the body is left vulnerable. Blood sugar remains elevated for longer, insulin levels surge higher, and over time the metabolic system begins to break down. This is the beginning of the cycle that leads to prediabetes, diabetes, and other chronic conditions. The role of muscle as a metabolic shield is especially clear when we compare people with high muscle mass to those with low muscle mass. Someone with greater muscle can consume the same meal but experience far less of a blood sugar rise afterward because their muscles soak up the glucose like a sponge. Meanwhile, someone with lower muscle mass experiences sharper spikes and slower recovery times, leaving glucose in the bloodstream to do damage. This explains why athletes, even when consuming large amounts of carbohydrates, often maintain excellent metabolic health. Their muscle mass acts as a massive protective shield. For the average person, this highlights the importance of maintaining and building muscle as a proactive defense system, especially as aging naturally reduces muscle tissue if it is not deliberately preserved. The shield analogy also applies to daily life in a very practical sense. Consider how often modern diets expose us to glucose loads: breakfast cereals, breads, pastas, sugary snacks, even fruits. Without strong muscles to act as a buffer, these constant inputs of glucose wear down the body's metabolic machinery. But with muscle, each meal becomes less of a threat and more of a controlled process. Even if a meal is higher in carbs than ideal, muscle helps manage it gracefully, preventing the long-term damage that repeated spikes can cause. What makes this even more empowering is that muscle is within our control. Resistance training, bodyweight exercises, or even regular movement that engages large muscle groups can significantly increase the shield's capacity. The very act of contracting muscle during exercise enhances glucose uptake, independent of insulin. This means the shield is strengthened not only by growing bigger muscles, but also by keeping them active and engaged. Over time, as both mass and activity increase, the shield becomes stronger and more effective, allowing the body to handle glucose with remarkable efficiency. In the broader picture of aging and health, this protective shield is one of the most valuable assets we can build. A strong shield keeps blood sugar stable, reduces the burden on insulin, and minimizes the wear and tear that drives metabolic diseases. It also supports energy balance, helping people feel more stable, energetic, and resilient after meals instead of experiencing crashes or fatigue. Ultimately, muscle's role as a metabolic shield highlights why it should be viewed as the body's greatest ally against the challenges of modern diets and lifestyles. It is not just about looking fit, it is about equipping the body with the defenses it needs to thrive. Muscle acts like a shield for metabolism, and the stronger the shield, the stronger and healthier the life it protects. Losing muscle with age accelerates glucose problems, frailty, and disease risk. This truth is at the heart of why aging looks and feels so different for people depending on how much muscle they preserve. As the years go by, the body naturally begins to lose muscle mass and strength, a process known as sarcopenia. Unless it is actively prevented, sarcopenia can begin as early as our 30s and continues steadily throughout life. The consequences are not just weaker arms or slower movement. The loss of muscle sets off a chain reaction of metabolic decline, making it harder to control blood sugar, easier to accumulate fat, and far more likely to develop chronic diseases associated with aging. Muscle is the body's main reservoir for glucose, so when that reservoir shrinks, glucose has fewer places to go after meals. As a result, blood sugar spikes higher and stays elevated longer. The pancreas is forced to release more insulin to try to compensate, but over time this leads to insulin resistance, where cells stop responding to insulin's signal. This cycle of higher blood sugar and higher insulin is one of the clearest pathways toward type 2 diabetes. For an older adult with declining muscle mass, this problem often appears subtly at first in the form of prediabetes, but it can quickly progress if nothing is done. Losing muscle with age is therefore not just about strength, it is about losing one of the body's most powerful tools for regulating glucose. At the same time, the physical decline from muscle loss contributes to frailty. Frailty is not just a loss of physical ability, but a state where the body becomes vulnerable to falls, injuries, and illness. Without adequate muscle, even basic activities like climbing stairs, lifting groceries, or getting up from a chair can become difficult. Each loss of independence increases the risk of inactivity, and inactivity further accelerates muscle decline, creating a vicious cycle. And it is in this state of frailty that disease risk rises sharply. A body that cannot manage glucose effectively and lacks the muscle strength to stay active is one that is highly susceptible to cardiovascular disease, obesity, cognitive decline, and even certain cancers. What makes this cycle even more concerning is that it can happen silently. Many people lose muscle without realizing it because the scale may not change much. They may maintain the same body weight, but behind the scenes, muscle is being replaced by fat. This shift in body composition is sometimes called sarcopenic obesity, and it is especially dangerous because it combines the weakness of muscle loss with the metabolic strain of fat gain. It is one of the reasons why two people of the same age and weight can have completely different health outcomes, one vibrant and strong, the other frail and at high risk for disease. The encouraging truth, however, is that muscle loss with age is not inevitable. Resistance training, protein-rich nutrition, and daily movement can all preserve and even rebuild muscle, no matter how old someone is. Studies consistently show that older adults who engage in strength training improve their glucose control, reduce their risk of diabetes, and regain strength that allows them to live independently. Muscle remains highly adaptable even late in life, responding to the signals we give it. The challenge is that too few people prioritize it until decline has already begun. Understanding the connection between muscle, glucose, and aging reframes how we think about longevity. It is not simply about adding years to life, but about ensuring those years are strong, stable, and disease-resistant. Losing muscle with age accelerates decline, but maintaining and building it slows aging at its root. Muscle preserves glucose balance, protects against frailty, and reduces disease risk. The message is clear: if we want to age well, we cannot afford to lose muscle. It is the foundation of resilience, the protector of metabolism, and the difference between living long and living strong. Building muscle isn't vanity. It's the most powerful longevity strategy. For too long, muscle has been seen as something only athletes, bodybuilders, or fitness enthusiasts should care about. Many people dismiss strength training as cosmetic, associating it with looks rather than health. But science tells a very different story. Muscle is not about vanity. It is about survival, resilience, and extending the years of life lived with strength and vitality. When we understand what muscle really does inside the body, it becomes clear that building and maintaining it is one of the most powerful actions anyone can take to slow aging and protect long-term health. Muscle is a longevity organ. Unlike fat, which stores energy, muscle consumes it. Unlike bones, which provide structure, muscle actively influences metabolism. And unlike most tissues, muscle is highly adaptable, responding quickly to use or disuse. This adaptability makes muscle one of the most controllable factors in aging. While we cannot change our genetics or stop the passing of time, we can choose to challenge our muscles, feed them properly, and allow them to grow stronger. Each time we do, we send a signal to the body to preserve its metabolic health, improve insulin sensitivity, and reduce the risk of chronic disease. Muscle building is therefore not just about looking fit. It is about creating a biological environment that favors longevity. The impact of muscle on glucose control is one of the clearest examples of this. Every time we eat, glucose enters the bloodstream, and muscle acts as the largest sink to absorb it. More muscle means more capacity to clear glucose, less strain on insulin, and lower risk of insulin resistance and diabetes. People who carry more muscle naturally handle meals better, avoiding the damaging blood sugar spikes that accelerate aging. In this way, building muscle is like creating a buffer that protects the body from modern diets and lifestyles. Instead of glucose becoming a threat, it becomes fuel stored safely in muscle for later use. But the longevity benefits of muscle go even further. Muscle acts as an endocrine organ, releasing compounds known as myokines during exercise. These signaling molecules travel throughout the body, reducing inflammation, improving brain function, supporting cardiovascular health, and even strengthening the immune system. Every time muscle is challenged, it communicates with other organs, essentially telling the body to stay young. This cross-talk is one reason why people who exercise regularly, especially with resistance training, tend to age biologically slower than those who don't. Their muscles are not just moving weight. They are sending powerful messages of health and renewal. Frailty in old age is one of the biggest fears people face. It is not disease alone that robs people of independence, but the loss of strength to perform everyday tasks. Without muscle, walking, climbing stairs, carrying groceries, or even standing up from a chair can become overwhelming. This loss of function leads to inactivity, and inactivity accelerates decline. By contrast, Those who prioritize muscle remain active, independent, and resilient even in later years. Building muscle early is protective, but it is never too late. Research shows that people in their 70s, 80s, and even 90s can regain muscle and strength with resistance training, and along with it, they regain confidence, balance, and independence. Perhaps the most powerful shift in perspective is realizing that muscle is not a cosmetic goal, it is a life-preserving one. Looking strong is a side effect, living strong is the true benefit. Building muscle is one of the few strategies proven to extend both lifespan and health span, the years of life lived free from disease and disability. While medicines may treat symptoms and diets may provide support, muscle directly addresses the root of aging by enhancing metabolism, protecting glucose control, reducing inflammation, and maintaining function. It is not vanity, it is a strategy for a longer, stronger, more vibrant life. Building muscle is the most powerful longevity strategy we have because it impacts every system in the body. It keeps glucose under control, reduces disease risk, protects against frailty, and sends anti-aging signals throughout the body. The choice is simple: neglect muscle and accept decline, or build muscle and embrace resilience. It's not about the mirror, it's about the years ahead and how strong and alive we want to be when we live them. Muscle is not just strength, it's your body's real fountain of youth. When most people think of muscle, they imagine lifting weights, athletic performance, or physical appearance. But muscle is far more than that. It is one of the most important tissues in the human body for health, vitality, and longevity. The way muscle interacts with metabolism, hormones, immunity, and even the brain reveals a truth that science is making clearer every year. Muscle is the closest thing we have to a fountain of youth. It does not stop the aging process, but it slows it down, protects against decline, and preserves the energy and function that make life worth living. Aging is often marked by loss of energy, loss of independence, loss of resilience. At the root of much of this decline is the gradual reduction of muscle mass and strength, a process that begins earlier than most people realize. Without intervention, muscle loss accelerates over time, leading to frailty, metabolic dysfunction, and disease. But when muscle is preserved and built, the story is completely different. Instead of decline, we see sustained vitality. Instead of frailty, we see strength. Instead of disease, we see resilience. That is why muscle can rightfully be called a fountain of youth. It keeps the body biologically young even as chronological years pass. One of the clearest ways muscle does this is by managing glucose. Blood sugar control is fundamental to health, and when it fails, the entire body suffers. Muscle acts as the largest reservoir for glucose, soaking it up after meals and keeping blood sugar levels in check. More muscle means better insulin sensitivity, less strain on the pancreas, and a reduced risk of diabetes and all the complications that come with it. In this way, muscle protects not only against metabolic disease, but also against accelerated aging caused by high blood sugar and high insulin. People with more muscle age more gracefully because their metabolism stays youthful. But glucose control is only part of the picture. Muscle is also a powerful endocrine organ. When we move and challenge our muscles, they release molecules called myokines. These chemical messengers influence the brain, the immune system, the heart, and even fat tissue. Some myokines reduce inflammation, which is one of the primary drivers of aging. Others improve brain health, supporting memory and cognitive function. Still others enhance fat burning and cardiovascular health. Every contraction of muscle sends a cascade of positive signals throughout the body, essentially telling it to stay strong, stay sharp, and stay young. The protective power of muscle is also evident in how it preserves independence. In older adults, the ability to rise from a chair, climb stairs, or carry groceries is directly tied to muscle strength. Those with more muscle live not only longer but also better. They avoid the spiral of inactivity that comes with weakness, and by staying active, they maintain balance, coordination, and energy. This prevents falls, fractures, and the rapid decline that often follows. Muscle keeps people capable, confident, and connected to life, which is as much a part of youthfulness as physical health itself. It is also important to recognize that muscle protects against nearly every major age-related disease. From heart disease to Alzheimer's, conditions of aging are worsened by inactivity and muscle loss. Conversely, maintaining muscle through strength training and physical activity reduces the risk of these diseases. It strengthens the heart, sharpens the mind, and even boosts immune defenses. In this sense, muscle is a medicine cabinet inside the body, offering protection against the most common threats to longevity. Calling muscle the real fountain of youth is not an exaggeration. It is a reflection of how deeply muscle influences the biology of aging. While no one can stop time, we can slow its effects by keeping muscle strong and active. Muscle provides energy, stability, resilience, and protection at every stage of life. It is the tissue that transforms aging from a story of decline into one of vitality. Muscle is not just strength, it is the body's greatest secret to staying young.